It is 12 o'clock in the morning. I keep doing this to myself. I have another scary story for you guys. And this one I actually found myself tonight. I've been binge reading no sleep stories. I found a good one for us. And I'm going to link the story down below as well as the author, so you guys should go check out his Facebook page and read some of his other stories. And then if you guys wanted to read along, there's a link down there as well. So this story is called What It's Really Like Inside the Mind of a Killer. Do you ever wonder what drives a serial killer? What do you think gives them the incentive to take the lives of others? Some people say it's fame, trauma, or just plain psychotic tendencies. I've come to realize that this certainly isn't the case. It depends on your breed, as you might say. Each killer has a type, whether it's derived from their personality or assigned to them. It could even be their own created persona. Either way, the theories you have on how these people's brains tick is nowhere near the truth. It all started as a teenager. I grew distant from other students, quiet, reclusive, typically lost in my own head, recreating these realities behind my eyes that seemed to be a lot more interesting than the average day-to-day. I never imagined winning the lottery or getting the girl. Honestly, I'd struggle to find something that gave me that overwhelming euphoric feeling that makes you forget the heavy boot of reality. I'd picture the world in ruins, images of fear and terror in the eyes of the unexpected. It became more and more vivid. These conscious dreams of mutilation and torture would just bring me joy, and it would take every ounce of self-control to stop myself from going through the day with a sinister grin plastered on my face. Finally, I gave in to the tendencies. I followed a classmate home from school after band practice, one I'd been watching for weeks now. By this time, I already knew his exact route. It was easy to go unnoticed, as he always had his earbuds in, playing music at full blast. He took a hard right off the sidewalk onto the trail into the woods, and I followed him as we were out of sight. Swiftly, I snuck up behind him and wrapped my hands around his head. Dead set. I had to know what it felt like to take a life. I wanted it to be slow, painful. I wanted to watch the fear in his eyes turn to gray as it fades to nothingness. The struggle of his instinctual reaction to fight back with every ounce of his might is what I craved the most. Digging my fingers into his eye sockets, he screamed at the top of his lungs as he frantically clawed at my hands in an attempt to free himself. It was too late. I worked him to the ground due to the submissive state I had him in. Short, quick breaths moved in and out of his lungs as I dug deeper. Shifting his weight over as he fell to the ground, I had him facing me, adjusting myself so both of my knees were pinning his arms to the pile of leaves and twigs to keep him from struggling. At this point, I changed my methods, wrapping both of my arms around his neck, squeezing as tightly as I could. Suddenly, his body was limp and lifeless. I released my grip and stared upwards into the sky. I could hear crows calling and the sound of wind rustling in the trees. The world seemed so much more peaceful. I was surprised how easily I evaded suspicion. Fortunately for me, my lack of social activities practically left me invisible. They found his body days later. From that day on, I knew what I was born to do, what made me different from others. The lack of sympathy, the fulfillment, the thought of taking another life was what put me to bed at night. I slept like a baby, until the cravings consumed me again. I started losing sleep. My mind simply wouldn't shut off. The hunger was similar to trying to go to bed on an empty stomach. My body physically could not let me sleep. It's been days since I've slept. I look like shit. One night, in my struggle to get some relief, I felt a presence, something ominous in my room. I felt the temperature of my room quickly rise. I was sweating. It felt like 100 degrees. Sitting up, I see a figure standing in the doorway. The black silhouette approached me slowly. The being came into view as a slender young man, neatly trimmed facial hair, combed-back hairstyle that was black as night. He wore a black suit with a long, thick pea coat. There was a pin over his left breast on his coat. At first, I couldn't depict what it was, but as he came closer, I recognized the symbol, a bright red pentagram. I was frozen, not in fear, but just shock. My brain seemed to cease all function, no reaction. It was just getting intolerably hot. He parted his lips, ready to speak, but paused for a moment. It was a brief pause, one as if he was ready to speak to the entire world as he stood on a podium. There are no need for introductions. This is a one-time meeting, so save your questions and listen. The tone of his voice was stern and commanding. He spoke with urgency, but clearly, as if these were his final words before going to war. I know what you are. There are many others like you, in fact. So many in all of history, you've more than likely heard of the majority of them. Others. There was another brief pause, as if he was going to tell me I was terminally ill and had 6 weeks left to live. Others that you see every day. There's a trait that you all share. Bloodlust. Not just your regular primal thirst. This is a need for death. Your body requires it just as much as you need food or water. The man's gesture struck me as odd. He spoke so seriously, as if some unsaid truth. I was hypnotized by his words. The thought of my personal fantasies being spoken to me is just fascinating. I stared, slack-jawed, as he continued. From here on, you will hydrate with blood, metaphorically speaking. I am simply your catalyst of transformation, with or without your consent. A grin forms upon his narrow jaw, a large, toothy grin. His teeth are black and sharp. I first assumed this man was human, but this assured me that he was otherworldly. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small rolled-up parchment. He removed the seal and opened it up. Swiftly, it was passed to me, and he pulled a pen from his shirt pocket. The pen had an engraving of the same emblem as his pin. This is your contract. Upon signing this, you will be gifted with abilities to assist you in your endeavors. The more lives you take, the greater you will become. Refusing to do so will result in your own demise. You will be at the mercy of your own instincts. The grin still sat upon his face. Never once did his lips come together since he first started speaking. As upheld, when your life comes to an end, and when we feel like you have proven your worth, you will be given a home in the afterlife, among all of the others like yourself. You will be well suited for all of eternity. Without any self-control, I took the pen. Clicking the top, what came from the end wasn't a ballpoint but a sharp needle. With the point, I pricked the top of my index finger inside the parchment in blood. Yes, yes. Those were the only words he spoke before snatching both of the items from me as he stepped back into the black abyss of my room. I suddenly felt so tired. I laid my head back down on my sweat-drenched pillow and closed my eyes. Almost immediately, I was asleep. It's been a while since I've gone without sleep. To offer you folks some clarity, I've managed to hone my skills in the art of murder. Find a target, observe, execute. I've managed to study several serial killers' tactics and methods in the countless hours of relentlessness. The extensive research has drawn me to the conclusion that they were under the same curse I unwillingly signed up for. Over time, I have become numb to the stress of malnutrition. I've acquired a plethora of new capabilities since my last update. My theories seem correct. The more lives I take and absorb, the stronger I've become. Basic conversation has followed an algorithm. Manipulation. Hand-to-hand physical combat is one-sided. There's been several instances where I've had a victim that didn't simply submit, and I've had to subdue them. Finding entry to someone's home had become a simple task. The art of a lockpick is just a simple flick and turn of a wrist. When worst comes to worst, I can easily stalk a person for a night and gain access to their home, strangle them in their sleep, and rest well in the same evening. Fortunately, I haven't had to do that in quite some time. My victim of choice happens to be the ones who value life the most. I prefer to kill those who will be missed. The more suffering, the better. There's something about knowing there's others who suffer from the loss of their loved one that makes the kill so much sweeter. What else to top the cake of misery with a little bit of indirect pain? This ripple effect of sorrow only makes the world suffer a little bit more and brings me the utmost joy when my work goes acknowledged. What seems to be the biggest thrill of it all is knowing that whoever I choose to advance on next is completely unaware. Sometimes I'll make it a game and leave them subtle hints of my presence. Other times, I'll access their home while they're away and leave clues of my presence laying in plain sight, only to watch them as their hair on their neck stands up. When I decide to make my move, I gracefully introduce myself, proving all of their fears to be true. I digress. There's more to it than just what's on the surface. You see, I figured out exactly why I'm here. The evil that lingers in the world is the only salvation you'll ever find. I've been contacted again by my contractor. With a newly regained confidence, he was pleased to hear that I've been successful in my endeavors and I've really unleashed my potential. I asked for insight on what our sole purpose is, and I was rewarded with a response. I'll put this into terms that are easier for you to understand. The battle between good and evil has been relinquished for a while. Free will has a problem on its own. God, who you call, has simply waved his white flag and gave in well after it began. Competition was pointless. Therefore, once there was absence of God, the crusade was just a lost cause. By this point, the world was engulfed in evil. Humanity has had no hope shortly after it came to be. That in its own is where I will lose a majority of you, but I'll continue. When you die, you will only be bound to one afterlife. That place you call hell will be your eternal resting place, forever bound to suffer your most nightmarish fears for as long as you can possibly imagine. Us, on the other hand, have been given a gift. This gift is to torture humanity in this life and the next. There is no hope. It's arguably pointless to have us in the mortal world bringing havoc amongst the living, but, you see, these demons have a sense of humor and a means for entertainment. I am the manifestation of a demon inside of a human body, nothing more. You are all lost souls, inevitably bound to an eternal suffering. Let me be the one to tell you that there's a killer inside everyone, lest we forget that a lot of you have the same tendencies I do, but have more than likely repressed them. Indulge. Do not fight what you cannot control. It will only make you weak. For those who lack the capabilities, be aware. There are many amongst you like myself. Some of these may be closer to you than it seems. We could be your neighbors, your friends, teachers, parents, even siblings. Guilt and empathy are only an illusion created by a false image of what you have been taught by the unaware. I'm here to shed light on the reality in which you have imagined. The only thing that matters in this world is suffering and power. When you give in to your primal thirst, you may be contacted the same way I have. It may come to you in another form, another figure. Some of you may never be reached at all. Do not lose sight of what really matters, for what lies in the end is only more suffering. I am your shepherd. I will lead you to power. Follow my path and let go of all that you thought was right. I will proceed to create chaos and despair amongst the living. This place you read these stories seems so interesting. You spend your free time reading these horrific tales of others for your own entertainment. Did you ever think what it would be like to be on the receiving end of one? From here on, I suggest you sleep with one eye open, or not at all for that matter. Any one of you could be the next victim of myself or another one like me. Your only chance of salvation is to give in to your darkest fantasies and wait for your own proposal from the Dark Lord. In the end, it'll all come down to one thing. Who's next? That is the end of that story. I'm literally losing my voice right now. Sorry if this video is extra raspy than normal. Don't know what happened. And I'm out of Diet Coke. I wanted to read another part of another story too because they're so similar. We'll try, and if my voice gives out, then I'll cut it. This one's pretty short, so I think I can get through it just fine. Both of these stories are very similar though, and they have similar titles, so I wanted to just put them all in one story, so at least this video will be a little bit longer. But this story is called The Mind of a Murderer. I woke up in a cold sweat. All I could think about was the white face and the maniacal laughter I was just dreaming about. I've been having these dreams for weeks now, and they get more and more intense every night. Each time I dream, I see the same white face and hear the same laughter. Every dream would be slightly different than the one before, but all of them end in murder. I got up and went about my day normally, trying to get a grip on my sanity. I drove to school in my old raggedy black Monte Carlo, and while on my way, I encountered a fork in the road, where normally it wouldn't be. I looked down at my phone to check Google Maps to see where I was. When I looked up, the two paths were gone, and I was in the school parking lot. I didn't understand what just happened. I thought I was going crazy. I walked into the school and met up with my friends Sammy and Hector. "You look like shit, bro," said Hector. He must have seen the bags under my eyes, and usually I tie my dreads back, but today they were just hanging. "I feel like shit," I replied nonchalantly. "You still having those nightmares?" Sammy asked. "Yeah, man, they just keep getting more and more intense. They feel so real," I told him. "It's like no matter how much I smoke or how many drugs I do, I can't help but shake these nightmares, man. I need help." "Talk to the counselor about it," said a soft, familiar voice. It was Jessica, my girlfriend. "Why didn't you call me this morning?" she asked. "You know I worry about you." Hector interjected. "Yeah, man, you never know what could happen. You know that Katie Harwin was found raped and stabbed to death last night? Her throat was sliced ear to ear. Katie Harwin was an attractive and popular girl at my school. I used to have a crush on her freshman year. She turned me down when I finally got the courage to ask her out. She wasn't very nice, so she didn't let me down easy. I'm sorry, I was just dealing with this morning," I said to Jessica. "And damn, that's some crazy shit, dude," I said to Hector. As I finished my statement, the bell rang for us to get to class. I was so tired during class. I could barely keep my eyes open. I put my head down on my desk and fell asleep right away. I woke up to the bell ringing and my classmates staring at me awkwardly. Usually everybody would be scrambling out of the door by now, but their eyes were glued to me, as if I had done something horrible. After a minute, I grab my stuff and get ready to leave, as does everyone else. But I hear whispering coming from the other students. My teacher stopped me before I left and asked me if I was okay and if I had been getting enough sleep. He said that while I was sleeping, I started screaming. He tried to wake me up, but I was too deep in my sleep. He said that he decided to let me rest. I told him I was okay and left feeling quite embarrassed and confused. News of the shocking murder of Katie Harwin was spreading throughout the school like wildfire. There was a tribute in her memory during lunch. After hearing all the details about the murder, it felt oddly familiar, like I had seen it in a dream. At the end of the school day, Jessica asked me to take her home, and I complied. After I dropped her off, something strange happened. I was driving home and I was pulled over by a police officer. He approached my car slowly and with caution. He asked for my license and registration, and I gave it to him. Told me I ran a stop sign, but I don't recall seeing a stop sign as I take this route home every day after I drop off Jessica, and there's never been a stop sign going this way. But then I looked up at the street and realized I'm on a completely different street than what I usually drive home on. I explained to the officer, but he just writes me a ticket and tells me to be on my way. When I get home, I take off my jacket and I see blood on my shirt. I didn't know where or who it came from. At this point, I've gone full paranoia mode. I turned on the TV to mellow out the uneasy feeling I had, but it only made matters worse. The news is on, and it says that a young man from my high school, Austin Murlock, had been gutted and hanged from a tree in his backyard. I held my breath. I remember this. I saw this. In a nightmare. For those of you wondering who Austin is, he basically terrorized me throughout all of elementary and middle school. What was even more shocking was that he hadn't come to school today, and that he had been dead since this morning. Around the same time that I saw the weird fork in the road. Could I have done this? Or something fucking with my head? My head swelled up with questions as I tried to figure out what the fuck was going on. I looked back at the TV and discovered that a new breaking story had been developing and another young person was found brutally murdered, cut into pieces and stuffed in a bag. The victim was revealed to be my ex, Nancy Marks. Her mother came home and checked on her and found her stuffed in a bag in her closet with blood all over the room. They're labeling this in the previous murders of Austin and Katie's serial killings. I felt myself go numb. All 3 of those people are people I wanted dead at some point in my life. It was as if something was trying to help me or ruin me. Those are the only 2 parts that they have, but I hope that they include more into that story. If you have any other stories that you want me to read, go ahead and send them to me. I always have my social media linked down below. I'm still looking for a really good story to read for an hour-long scary story. I know I owe you guys like 45 by now, but my filming situation just kind of sucks, so it's hard because excuses. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Why is my throat doing this to me? Why am I losing my voice? I wanted to film another video, but I literally can't. I've acquired a plethora of new what seems to, oh my god. There was a tribute in memory of her lunch. It's a tribute in memory of her fucking lunch.